Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn his heat. It's gone. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. Ja Morant. Insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. Grizzlies win edition. My name is Keith Parrish. The Grizzlies moved to 2-0 with Ja Morant by holding the Pacers to a season-low 103 points. And now, I gotta say, I'm feeling a lot better about this team now that Ja Morant is here. On today's episode, I'm going to talk about the win. I'm going to talk about the imminent return of Marcus Smart. Before we do all of that, just a word from me to let you know that you should join my Patreon, patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. If you join that Patreon, you can join the Slack channel. We have a Grits and Grinds exclusive Slack channel as part of the overall Fast Break Breakfast Slack channel. It's a fun community of passionate, interesting, and intelligent NBA fans. So if you want to join that and help out the creation of this show, do it at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. You also get access to some exclusive bonus content if you do that. So join the Patreon, patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. All right, this was, I gotta say, another super fun game. Coming off the incredible comeback victory over the Pelicans, you had the electricity and home crowd energy for Ja's debut at the FedEx Forum, and the Grizzlies started out quickly, got out to a pretty big lead, scored 35 points in the first quarter. I loved it specifically because we're coming off the highest scoring half of the season, the 76 points they scored in the second half against the Pelicans, and now you keep scoring. And this is a team that had been awful at offense, and so you post 35 points, you're ahead by 13 after the first quarter. You eventually build that lead up to 23 points. Everything's going great. The shots are falling. Ja Morant's getting towards the bucket, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, we're really, really good. Well, the Pacers erased the lead completely in like a 3-minute span right before halftime, and so the Grizzlies go into halftime only up by 2 points. And then at the start of the third quarter, the Pacers actually take the lead. Tyrese Halliburton took him a while to get going. I like to credit the defense of Vince Williams Jr. For that. Of course, the entire team's defense has been playing really, really well the last couple games. Actually, the last like 5 or 6 games, the defense has really been cranking up. And the Pacers, though, took the lead in the third quarter. But then you saw that balanced attack from the Grizzlies. Ja Morant scoring. Desmond Bane's making shots. Jaren Jackson Jr. is making shots. And the Grizzlies built the lead back up. And then it was the start of the fourth quarter, early in the fourth quarter, where you really felt the bench's contribution. A big part of this game, I mean, the major bullet points, Ja, Desmond, and Jaren all score 20 or more points. But we get that a lot from those guys. The possibly deciding factor is the Grizzlies bench scored. We haven't been getting bench scoring. And in the deciding run in the fourth quarter, we're talking Zaire Williams making 3-pointers, maybe banking a 3-pointer in on accident. We're talking about Santi Aldama drilling threes. Maybe the most notable stat, I don't know if this is the most notable stat, but I think it's very interesting. In this game, when Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. were both on the bench, so this is Ja Morant lineups with some of your lesser players. Ja Morant carrying the bench lineups. They outscored the Pacers by 18. There were 13 minutes when Ja was playing with, we'll call them the backups. 13 minutes when Ja was playing with the backups when Dez and Jaren were both on the bench, and the Grizzlies won those 13 minutes by 18 points. That has to do with Santi and Conchar and Zaire hitting 3-pointers. Those guys contributed in other ways, But the three-point shot is powerful. We know this. And that was one of the deciding factors to this game. Like, interestingly, this was the first win all season where the Grizzlies made 14 or more three-pointers. Again, that's that bizarre stat. The previous 2 seasons, if you missed it, the Grizzlies are 40-7 when they made 14 or more threes. Somehow this year they'd been 0-9 when they actually hit their three-pointers. This game, they made threes. That was the difference. Now, going to the big three, all scoring 20 points or more. The broadcast had a interesting stat that I didn't know. The Grizzlies are now undefeated all time when Jaren Jackson Jr., Ja Morant, and Desmond Bane each score 20 points in a game. That's happened 6 times. So not like a predictive stat, but they've won all 6 games where that has occurred. I also looked at the opponents, mainly not very good opponents. I mean, the Pacers they're okay. But the Pacers were playing on the second night of a back-to-back. I mean, the Grizzlies were 4.5-point favorites. A lot of that was the Pacers. Second night of a back-to-back. And then, of course, you assumed in Ja Morant's home debut, where a team had been struggling so poorly at home, the Grizzlies were going to have a lot of energy. We're going to play well. We're going to feed off the crowd. And I think that's exactly what happened. In this game, the Grizzlies shot over 50% as a team. That makes them 2 for 2 on Ja Morant games and shooting over 50% from the field. In the first 25 games, they shot 50% or better twice. Now in 2 games with Ja Morant, they've shot 50% or better both times. By the way, they're 4-0 this year when they shoot 50% or better. That, I think, is an important predictive stat. When they shoot a good percentage from the field, like most teams, they're probably going to win the basketball game. The Grizzlies were led in scoring by Desmond Bane's 31 points. He really turned it on in the second half, had 22 of his 31 points in the second half. He made 4 three-pointers in the second half alone, finished with 5 made three-pointers. So he extends his franchise record streak of most consecutive games with 3 or more threes to 11. Ja Morant had 20 points and 8 assists. And just the way he attacks defenses, the way he gets in the paint, like we're scoring in the paint again, the way the other team collapses on him and then he's able to find other players. He imbues confidence to all his teammates. I don't know if there's an intangible aspect to that where all of a sudden the bench guys look way better. I mean, some of it is Ja Morant hitting them with great passes, giving them easier shots, but maybe some of it is just they have more belief when they're out there playing with Ja Morant. Jaren Jackson Jr., he scored 21 points, had 8 rebounds, was extremely efficient. 8 out of 10 on his field goal attempts, made 2 threes. He did turn the ball over a career high 7 times. And 3 of those were offensive fouls where he ran over a Pacers player. I think twice, 2 of them were drawn by Aaron Nesmith. By the way, Aaron Nesmith, who went to Vanderbilt, he had a remarkable game. I believe he drew 3 offensive fouls. He also had 4 steals and 3 blocks, also made 4 three-pointers. A very unique and impressive game by the backup for the Pacers, Aaron Nesmith. By the way, Desmond Bane's 30-point game, he had 31 points and 7 assists. So that's the 15th 30.5 assist game of his career. That puts him 4 behind Mike Conley for the second most of those in franchise history. And Jaren in this game did not block a shot, so he's still 1 behind Stroma Swift for the 3rd most blocks in franchise history. A little word for Zaire Williams, who had a very big game, scored 16 points in a little over 18 minutes of playing time, made 3 out of 4 threes. Yes, one was that banked one, but another one was just this beautiful rainmaker where he caught a loose ball, came right to him, had to put it up, swished it. He also got 2 assists and 2 blocks, got a steal. So I think very good activity from Zaire Williams. And he's a guy that everyone, like I'm not making a wild claim here, everyone has specifically targeted Zaire as a guy who just works so much better with Ja Morant. Like Ja Morant gives him these lobs. He lets him finish these alley-oops. There was one, maybe is a little bit too high, that Zaire couldn't handle. But like all of a sudden, Zaire doesn't have to create on his own. he can just find those spots in transition, find those spots in the half court where the defense loses him, and be this threat. And you saw the Grizzlies, their pace was so much better in this game. Of course, a lot of that is you're playing the Pacers. It's not just their name, they're one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA. So the Grizzlies, after defensive rebounds, after made shots, they're pushing the ball, they're getting transition points, and a lot of those times they're finding Zaire for alley-oops. I mean, Ja also found Santi Aldama for alley-oops. Santi Aldama, he scored 13 points. He made 3 3-pointers and had that one amazing one-handed alley-oop finish. I mean, the entire bench, again, re-emphasizing Aldama, Conchar, Zaire, and Tillman. Those guys were 15 for 23 from the field, 8 for 13 on threes. The Grizzlies only played those 4 bench players. That's the only bench players they played, and they scored 40 points. That is abnormal production for those guys. And speaking of only playing those 4 guys, I think this is super interesting. This is what you guys listen to Grits and Grinds for. They played 9 men, so a 9-man rotation, and David Roddy had his first DMP of the season. This had been the one guy who had basically stayed in the rotation no matter what, as they shuffled everyone, in, and they tried different wing combinations. They'd always stuck with David Roddy. Well, they did not in this game. They, of course, continued to start Vince Williams Jr., and they played Conchar. He's been playing so well recently. He's kind of gotten back to those jitty waves. I mean, the Conchar blocks in this one, yeah, he made 2 3-pointers, which is awesome, but the blocks were huge in this game. But they're playing Conchar because of, I think, the connective ability he has for rebounding and passing and defense. And then you played Zaire because I think Zaire just fits better with Ja Morant. I think Zaire and Roddy are very comparable shooters. Neither one's great. I mean, Roddy's pretty bad. Zaire, we hope, is maybe going to get better, but Zaire, with that athleticism, that's maybe a tiebreaker when he can be paired with Ja. So they went with Conchar and Zaire as the wings off the bench. Then they just used the regular front court backups in Santi Aldama and Xavier Tillman. Now, Vince Williams Jr., he played 35 minutes in this game. Do you guys remember the episode I did with Chris Harrington a week ago where I just said, I just want this guy to play 35 minutes a game. Just play him nonstop. I said if this guy played in the 90s or under Tom Thibodeau, he'd be someone who would play 40, 42 minutes a game just as this supporting piece to the really good players. And kudos to the coaching staff for actually kind of doing it. He played 35 minutes this game. He played 35 minutes last game. They are seeing what we're all seeing. Vince is that dude. He guards the other team's best perimeter player. He hustles like crazy. He communicates and directs his teammates on defense. He's really good at moving the ball. I maintain his passes are crisper than almost anybody else's on the team. I also think he's thinking about where he's going to pass the ball before he gets the ball. I don't know if everybody does that on this team. He knows when he gets it. I mean, he's not looking to score. Maybe the other team will figure that out at some point and be like, hey, I don't need to worry about Vince catching the ball right here because he's going to swing it immediately to someone who's a greater threat. But right now it's working. And I don't care if Vince missed all of his three-point attempts. Not a problem. I don't trust his shooting. He can go 1 for 5 from the field and score 2 points. If you're getting 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, 1 block, plus 14, yeah. Keep playing him 35 minutes. Just incredible stuff. Here's a way he's different than my guy, D'Anthony Melton, who everyone keeps comparing him to and being like, hey, this is your new guy. Yeah, Vince is my new guy. No question. But also there's this unanimous feeling, I feel like, among Grizzlies fans and analysts, we see it. That guy's better than our other wing players. And with the way he works as a connective piece, you got to keep playing him. But one way he's different than D'Anthony Melton never played 35 minutes in consecutive games. By the way, here's something I looked up just out of my own curiosity. If Vince Williams Jr. plays 35 minutes next game, the game against the Hawks on Saturday, he'll become just the 5th player under Taylor Jenkins to play 35 minutes or more in 3 straight games. The only players under Taylor Jenkins to have 3 straight games of playing 35 minutes or more: Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Dylan Brooks, and Tyus Jones did it once. Jaren Jackson Jr. has never played 35 minutes in 3 consecutive games under Taylor Jenkins. Now, what is going to keep Vince from playing that many minutes? Probably the return of Marcus Smart. How will Marcus fit into this rotation? Let's talk about that right after this quick break. Underdog Fantasy is a unique fantasy gaming experience. You can play for cash against your friends in daily fantasy contests. You can also play in giant daily fantasy tournaments. You can do hires or lowers based on your favorite players' stat predictions or your least favorite players, whatever you prefer. If you want to try out Underdog Fantasy right now, if you sign up using promo code FBBF, they will match your opening deposit up to $100. If you happen to live in Tennessee or Alabama or Mississippi, they will match your opening deposit up to $500. So if you want to play fantasy sports for cash, you want to give Underdog Fantasy a try, use that promo code FBBF or click the link in this episode's description. All right, something interesting before this game is Marcus Smart got upgraded from out on the injury report to doubtful. That means that Marcus Smart is expected to make his season debut on Saturday. If you've been tracking the way the Grizzlies do this when players return from long injuries, they basically always put him as doubtful the game before they return. For the next game, they'll put him as questionable, and then we expect him to return. I laid out on the last episode that I think Vince Williams Jr. should keep his starting spot. The reason being, in short, is I think Vince fits great alongside the current starters, which are Ja Morant and Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. and Bismack Biyombo. I think his defense, his ball movement, and rebounding fit perfectly. And Marcus Smart, I think, can do a better job than Vince helping uplift those bench units. I mean, last game, Ja Morant didn't need any help. He basically uplifted them all by himself. But I think Marcus Smart might slide a little bit more smoothly into a 6th-man role. Marcus Smart can still play, 25, 26, 27, 28 minutes. He can still close the games. He can play even more minutes than Vince Williams Jr., but I think the rotation might make a little bit more sense if Marcus comes off the bench. Now, I would guess maybe they do play that way just because they're maybe not going to give Marcus like 30 minutes in his first game out, and so if they're bringing him along slowly, it's easier to do that, and it's more explainable to maybe people like Marcus himself who thinks he should be playing more minutes, that, hey, we're going to bring you along a little bit slower to ramp you up into full game minutes. Now, maybe they will just go straight to starting Marcus Smart. It's not going to be bad because then you'll just bring Vince off the bench and you will somehow stagger Desmond and Ja and Marcus. So, one of those guys, of course, is going to be on the court at all times, but probably, hopefully, 2 of them are going to be on the court basically the whole time. Like in this win over the Pacers, for the second straight game, you had Ja and Dez swapping. Whenever one was off the court, the other one was on the court. There was never a minute where Ja or Dez were off the court, which is great. Now, Jaren's minutes, they usually lined up with Dez. So you had Desmond and Jaren usually playing together. I think if you bring Marcus Smart off the bench, you can basically keep that same substitution pattern. And then instead of Ja playing lineups with like all bench guys or all, some of our lesser players like Conchar and Zaire and Santi and Xavier, instead of Conchar or Zaire, now it's going to be Ja and Marcus playing with who I guess is going to be Zaire. I assume Marcus is going to take the minutes of John Conchar. I think because of Zaire's great play in the win over the Pacers, because of that lob threat and his size, they'll probably stick with Zaire. Also, Conchar, one of the more likely guys on the roster to possibly get traded later this season. So if it was up to me, I'm basically giving all of Conchar's minutes to Marcus Smart, and then, you're going to play him a little bit more than you would. Like, you're not going to play him 20 minutes or something. You're probably going to play Marcus closer to 25, 26 minutes. And once Marcus is back, we're going to have some incredible lineups. I mean, I was already excited about, it hasn't been as good as I wanted. We were excited about unleashing Marcus and Jaren together. Marcus and Jaren plus Vince could be incredible. And it's going to be, I don't know, they're going to be a tough team to score on, you would think. Now, what happens when Luke Kennard comes back? So Luke Kennard's not far away from coming back. That makes it trickier. If you have Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, and Marcus Smart all healthy, already it was kind of weird where you're like, well, you're never going to play those three with Luke Kennard, probably. I mean, you might do it sometimes, but like that's not normal. Now that Vince, I think, has staked his claim on minutes, I mean, what do? Vince has basically been our shooting guard and small forward, and he's been great at it. Here's a great question. I think it's a good question. Who's better, Vince Williams Jr. or Luke Kennard? I don't think it's a wild question. I think for this roster, for this fit, Vince Williams Jr. might be a better fit. I'm not forgetting the incredible lineup data last year when Ja and Luke and Desmond played. What were they like? They're plus 40 points per 100 possessions last year. Luke Kennard made 54% of his threes last year on the Grizzlies. All that's going to be great. But now that you have Marcus Smart, who's going to be playing lots of minutes, it becomes a little bit stranger to try to play all those guys. I mean, Vince, I think, can size up at the 4, and you are going to see some small ball, probably some awesome small ball lineups where it's Ja, Desmond, Marcus, Vince, and Jaren. That's going to be an incredible lineup. But when you size up Vince, I think you lose one of his advantages, which is he's doing all this rebounding and defending from one of your smaller positions. You're getting this bonus of great rebounding from a guard or small forward spot. Once you make him be the power forward, then you slightly, I think, lose that advantage. But it's going to be an interesting challenge if the team's fully healthy to figure out exactly who all plays. I don't think I'm not worried about Vince Williams Jr. getting like DMPs. I'm really not. I think it's too obvious that he's good. I do think it makes sense to consider Luke Kennard in trades. I think he might be that, I'm not going to say superfluous. All right, I guess I'll say superfluous. I think if the team is healthy, trading Luke Kennard to maybe get a center maybe makes a little bit more sense. Now, I don't think they're going to do anything like that quickly, and they've had so many injury problems. You're not, I think, going to trade guys away because you're like, oh, we have too much depth. No, depth has been a nightmare issue through the first 27 games. It's okay to have some extra guys whose skill sets overlap. They'll just try to, figure it out as it comes. And again, we're 2-0, which is great. And we're feeling awesome about our team now. And we're like, oh, we're only 6 games behind the 8 seed. Yeah, it's all true. But like 2 games aren't going to cause you to change your direction for this season as far as like what your plans are and like your decision to maybe try to bring in a center. Like you still need a center, okay? Bismack in this game had one awesome poster dunk and otherwise just got his lunch eaten by Miles Turner. He lost the ball out of bounds several times. He has famously terrible hands. Like Bismack, pretty ineffective. Xavier Tillman, still looks better with Ja. He's been all right the last 2 games. But the Pacers went to hack and X in this one. I don't know why. Xavier Tillman has forgotten how to shoot free throws. Like, I guess he's just been working out with Steven Adams all off season or something. I mean, this guy last year, 55%. The year before that, 65%. The year before that, his rookie year, 64%. Now he's shooting 33% on the year. It's very small volume. I think he's 7 for 21. But why did Xavier Tillman forget to shoot free throws? Who knows? But like, you need probably a real center at some point if you're going to like fulfill this dream of making it into the playoffs through the play-in. I don't think Bismack and Xavier are going to be enough. Now, possibly you get help, unexpected help in Brandon Clark. I don't know if you saw this news. Brandon Clark's been posting videos on social media of him doing exercises and also dunking. And he said he's planning to return at the All-Star break. If that's true, that would be, of course, amazing. I get nervous about that. I'm like, hey, man, just heal up. We're 7-19. You just get healthy. Let's worry about next year. But maybe Brandon Clark is, in fact, on his way back. That would be a huge boost. That would be a reason maybe you don't make a move to trade somebody to try to get, some other center who's a little bit better than Bismack Biyombo. Also, like I said, you're not changing your direction after 2 wins. If we win 5 more in a row, if we got 7 straight wins, all right, maybe let's then start thinking about what do the Hawks want for Clint Capella? What do the Wizards want for Daniel Gafford? Or what's the price for Kelly Olynyk? Something like that. Kind of a move around the edges that doesn't cost you too much. Maybe you do that. By the way, speaking of the front court, Santi Aldama, I already said, he had 13 points. He's made a 3-pointer in 21 straight games. That is the 8th longest streak in franchise history. And another stat that really helped the Grizzlies out in this win over the Pacers was they won the free throw battle by a lot. It was good to be on that side of the ledger. The Pacers only took 11 free throws, partly because they took 52 3-pointers. That's the reverse of what the Grizzlies had been doing when Ja Morant was out. And I believe that is everything I have from this game. A great win, a great fun time watching the Grizzlies with Ja Morant play basketball. Just some news for the holidays. I will not have another episode until next Friday. Now, I'd say next Friday at the earliest. So just follow along, I guess, on Twitter at Fast Break Break and at Grizzlies Pod for my reactions to what I assume is going to be Marcus Smart's debut on Saturday. If you want to hear more from me, also go to patreon.com, sign up over there, patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. Join that Slack channel. I, of course, will be on my phone throughout the entire holidays, so I can interact with you over there if that's something you want. All right. Hope you guys have happy holidays. Have a great Friday. I will talk to you soon. Go Grizz.